Alright, this is going to be a very unorthodox video from videos I would like to post on this channel, but fuck it. I did say I was going to get this video out Thursday night, Friday morning, so here I am. My original, it is 11:20 right now. My original plan was to record this at like 6:30 after dinner. Got in bed, started listening to some Opeth. Literally fucking fell asleep until like 8:30. Got up, took the trash out, laid in bed, watched some more YouTube, talked to my cousin for a while, and then fucking got up, went to the gas station. Now that I am stuffed full of gas station taquitos and I've lost $2 on scratch-off lottery tickets, I think it's finally time to record this video. So, guys, I'll be honest, first time I listened to Opeth, it wasn't my thing. For some reason, I was not a fan of growling at all when I first got into, like, heavier metal. But here I am now, and it's, like, one of my favorite things in the fucking world. So, obviously, Opeth was a great contender for that, because I think that they're an amazing prog metal band, if you want to call them that. Literally, I spent this week so far going through, like, I started Monday... I started Monday or Tuesday? I started Monday listening to all 13 studio albums all the way through. And I have come up with a pretty honest fucking ranked list here. I'm not editing this video. This is just going to be like a rough one take video. So I'm going to do my best to use the remaining words in my brain that I have left from this long-ass day that has put me through hell. So, little life update real quick before we get into ranking all of these fucking Opeth albums, which they're all good in their own way, I guess, but some of them I just really didn't like. I love Opeth, don't get me wrong, which is funny because I've only been a fan for a week. So, I'm doing okay. That's my life update. I'm doing fine, I guess. So, let me just jump right out of the gate. Milk, I guess, you know? I don't know. Okay, so 13, I gotta go with Heritage. I know some people, like, they listen to this. I have not had a chance to listen to this a second time. I don't know if I want to go back and listen to this a second time. Like, that is an hour of my life. But the first time I listened to this, I just really had a hard time enjoying it. I don't know if it was me being spoiled by the first however many fucking Opeth albums there were, but I just could not get into this album. I tried so hard. I sat there and I got about 50% into sleep, and I just tuned into this fucking album. And I just, even down to the album art, I just could not get into it. I just really couldn't. Coming in at number 12, Pale Communion. This was a little bit better than Heritage. I noticed some slight differences. To me, it kind of sounded the same, but I noticed some slight differences. That was 2014, I think. It was just a little bit better than Heritage, but I still didn't really like it, and I don't know if I would revisit it anytime soon. Sorceress, number 11. I really, again, had a hard time getting into this album. The album art is gorgeous, and it's a lot... It's slightly better than Pale Communion and Heritage. But still, I just don't think that their newer stuff is as strong as their older stuff. And, you know, I might as well just explain why now. I was going to do it in the later albums, but... Or, like, the ones later in this video. Sorry, my brain's, like, out of it. But, I don't like when Opeth has one specific sound as much. I kind of like it more when they have blended sounds, if that makes any sense. Like, when they do their acoustic work or their clean vocals or whatever, and then, like, the soft electric guitar mixed with the heavy metal, and it's just really good to me. I don't think that anything can really top that sound for them. So that's kind of where I stand on their recent 4 albums. And speaking of recent 4 albums, let's talk about the most recent one. Number 10, in Cauda Venenum. Not sure how to pronounce that one. That is the first album that they released in Swedish and... English. I have only heard the English version, but it was a lot better than the previous three. I think it was definitely the best album to come out of the last decade. So that's kind of where I stand on that. Also, I think my opinions on Opeth are a lot different, especially when you get into like the top 5 albums. I don't know that people exactly have the same lineup that I do, but you know what? That's okay. Coming in at, okay, wait, no, in Cauda Venenum. Let's talk about that album for a minute. So, I have notes on everything up until Ghost Reveries, so I'll have to get into that whenever I hit those. In Cauda Venenum definitely was their best sounding album in how many math? 14 years. Jesus Christ, I'm getting old, guys. Definitely the best sounding album in 14 years. I don't want to say I loved Watershed. It was an okay album, but definitely bringing back some of their older elements in Cauda Venenum. Still the constant folk, neo, whatever, but you know, definitely stronger than the previous three. Speaking of Watershed, that is number 9. That was their last album that featured like death metal vocals and that super heavy style that Opeth had before. I don't know too much about this band. I know that they've gone through constant lineup changes from what I've read. I don't know if their change in music from Watershed to Heritage was a huge influencer on why they turned out the way they did. I'm not a huge fan of their later work, you know, I'll just be honest, you know, like, I'm not shitting on them for that. If they want to take that direction, that's theirs, and I'm sure a lot of their fans actually do like that direction that they took. I'm just not a huge fan of it. I'm gonna be blatantly honest with you. That's what this channel's about, being honest about music. But Watershed, I don't know, I had a hard time getting into that sound, really. It was an okay album. I feel like they could have finished on a stronger album of that style. Like, I know that they changed up the style a little bit, but they still had their original style in there as well. I feel like they could have had a stronger end of the run, I guess. Also, yeah, I took a nap, so my hair is a little fucky, but it is what it is. Damnation. I have notes on this one. Let's talk about Damnation. This came out in, what, fucking 2003? Yes. Alright. Number 8, Damnation. I said, and I quote, I have notes. I was not expecting this at all. It was interesting to hear Opeth go on a full soft streak. It was a little repetitive for me, but in the end, I do believe that there were some really gorgeous elements. It was a little too much calm for me. See, I feel like that should either be too calm, or I think it meant like too much calm music for me. I think they definitely sound better with both their heavy sound and their calm sound blended together. Too much of either is a little offsetting. I touched on that earlier. There were quite a few elements in this album where I found myself diving into personal struggles from my past, and that was interesting. But overall, it's not a bad album. I just think it's not their strongest performance when it comes to their entire discography as a whole. A lot of that is where this comes in. Like, each album is good in its own way. I've mentioned that in this video already, but when it comes to their discography, in my opinions, Damnation comes in 8th. And, like, each person likes a different sound, basically. So, again, leave your opinions down in the comments. I always love to see what you guys think and where your albums rank on these lists. Now, let's see what I did for number 7. Okay, so for number 7, and you know, this one was kind of hard for me. I had a hard time picking between 6 and 7. But in the end, I put My Arms, Your Hers in 7th place. 1998. All right. A lot of this album sounds the same to me. I had a hard time really enjoying it, especially in the first half. The second half was a little more enjoyable. It just didn't have as much Opeth in it as the last record. The last record being Morningrise, their 1996 album. which is weird to say because, you know, they wrote the album, so obviously it's going to be Opeth sound, but it's just not the one that I really prefer as much. I mean, My Arms, Your Hearse is definitely great. I think once I get into the top 7 albums of this list, I could go back and listen to any of them. I think they were experimenting with a lot of different sound at this time. I don't really think they had found their sound yet. I think they honestly did a better job finding their sound in Morningrise than My Arms, Your Hearse. I think they took a little bit of a step backwards, but they definitely made up for it later on. I don't know if I have too much more to say about this record. I would listen to it again, but it's definitely not the first Opeth album I would pick up. I would listen to it again, though. I would purchase this album, which I plan to. I think these top 7 albums I will purchase whenever I get the opportunity. And I definitely enjoyed the closing track of this album. So that was my number 7. Number 6 for me was Damnation. No, Deliverance. God. Let's see what I said about Deliverance, because my brain's all out of whack right now. I'm getting these albums mixed up. Is that an orb? I swear to God, there was just an orb in front of me. My spirit hunting instincts. I'm probably just seeing shit. Deliverance. Deliverance was definitely a bit heavier than the others in a lot of aspects. Okay, listen, I know Deliverance was their heaviest album. I thought it was good as hell, though. Like, honestly, it was a really good fucking album. And, again, I had a hard time enjoying the first half as much, but after the first, like, 25 minutes, it definitely got stronger. When it came to, like, Orchid, I was a little, which is weird, because obviously I put Orchid above this one, but, when it came to Orchid, the transitions were a little sloppy, but the sudden transitions in this album, for some reason, I liked a lot, in Deliverance. But they were actually good. A lot more organized than the Orchid ones. I found myself really enjoying the second half, like I already said. I don't know what else to say about this. It wasn't a super strong follow-up to Blackwater Park. I feel like they definitely could have made the first 25 minutes stronger. That would have made this album absolutely incredible. But I still think this album was good, and I would purchase it and listen to it any day of the week. So that is number 6. Coming in at number 5, I have Ghost Reveries. Definitely, okay, I have this one a little bit higher, but then I re-listened to the older albums and I just got hooked. But coming in at number 5, definitely Ghost Reveries. This is definitely an interesting album. Different from any Opeth album that I had heard up until that point. They took on a new sound here. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not very instrument savvy, but there was a lot of like synthesizer or keyboard in this album. And other technical elements were put into this album, and I think it was absolutely incredible. I think it was an incredible step, especially after the follow-up albums to Blackwater Park, like Damnation and Deliverance. Wrong order. It was Deliverance and then Damnation, but you get the point. I think that this was definitely a stronger album than both of those. That is why it's coming in 5th rather than 6th and 8th like the other ones. But it really it really defines their sound in a new style, but it works. Definitely some creepy portions in this record and offsetting a little bit, but I like that. And to me, this album definitely deserves to be in 5th or higher. Like, when it gets down to especially the last 5, I had a really hard fucking time ranking these albums. It took me like 20 minutes to just sift through those last 5 albums and decide which one was truly the best in my head. So, coming in at number 4, I have Orchid. So, I think this is an incredible debut album. A lot of people shit on Orchid. They put it like 9th, 10th. Some people put it last. But I think that it was an incredible debut sound for this band. And even better with Morningrise, like defined, it's basically a defined Orchid, a better Orchid. But Orchid is a great album. I think the transitions definitely could have been more different, but like they had a ton of ideas. Actually, let me see what I was saying about this album. They had a ton of ideas in this album. Okay, this is exactly what I said. I think this is a good album. For me, knowing that this is their first album, I tend to have a lot more leniency. So I really did think this album was good. There were times where I was thinking, oh wow, there's still this much time left in the album, as if I was waiting for it to end. This album is weird. It has so many different ideas put into one album. I think there were just too many ideas to try and fit into one album, and they had a hard time organizing it. If you listen to this album all the way through, you can see just how jumbled it really is. I know they like to blend a lot of different styles in the music, but the transitions weren't great in this album. But overall, a really good album. Honestly, I know I kind of shit-talked it there for a second, but I think it was an amazing base for the band and the discography of this group. I think there are quite a few parts of this album that sound absolutely gorgeous. In my book, this one deserves to be fourth. Like I said, it was pretty sloppy, but I liked this sound better than a lot of their newer stuff, like by far. I think Orchid, like I keep saying, was just an incredible first album for this group. So, you know, I touched on My Arms, Your Hearse earlier, and that got 7th place for me. Right after that, released in 1999, was my 3rd place, Still Life. Another great album. There were a few tracks near the end that really caught me off guard. I think it was a really good album simply for the fact that they put it together in a year, which is impressive because their previous album, My Arms, Your Hearse, it took them 2 years, and this one was a lot better. I think there are a lot of elements in this album that are sort of taking away from some of their roots, or they're taking them away from their roots, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Before, they had more of, you know, don't get too angry here. I'm just speaking what I think. I think that they had a lot of black metal sounding elements to them in their first 2, even 3 albums. But like before, they had kind of a black metal sounding and with the vocals, and it sounded great. But I think that Still Life was kind of their way of taking them up to their peak almost. Like the climax of the Opeth sound for me. Overall, really good album, and I left this one in 3rd place. So, coming in at 2nd place for me, it was so hard for me to rank the last 2 albums. I sat there and looked at it for the longest fucking time, and I finally decided that number 2 was going to be Morningrise, 1996. Right off the bat, let me just lean back and let's relax here, fellas. Right off the bat, better than Orchid, their previous album. More organized. I have to say that I really love this style of Opeth. But going along with style, I think this album has a slightly more refined style than Orchid. The dual guitars sound really good in this album. I also think that... Hello, Shady. I said I also think that... Hello? I said it was a good follow-up to Orchid as well. It shows the patterns of progression and improved production. God, I was awake when I wrote that. Holy shit. The acoustic tracks show an improvement from their last album. There are some incredibly gorgeous moments in this album that slow your heart down and let you enjoy the music. Some bands don't let you enjoy the music simply for the fact that you never get a fucking break from their music in their album. But I can always appreciate that Opeth could give you a pleasurable break even in their earlier years. That was a good way of wording that. I don't know how I didn't realize this sooner, but in their early years, they did a lot more screaming than growling. I like both styles, though. This album really had a way of getting me in the feels, especially with the acoustic tracks. One last thing to touch on, the bass on this album was great. I ended up having to put this one at 2nd place because, honestly, when you have a starting track as strong as the one in this album, there's just no going back. I thought that it was absolutely fucking incredible, and the whole album was strong. I know a lot of people don't like Morningrise. A lot of people don't like Orchid and Morningrise. But I think this is one of Opeth's best sounds by far. And, you know, I'm going to do the typical Opeth fan thing and say that number 1 is Blackwater Park. This was the first album that I heard by Opeth. Jesus Christ, I need sleep. First album I heard by Opeth. and I didn't like it at first. I listened to the first 2 songs, which are 2 of the best songs on the album, in my opinion. But I didn't like it the first time I listened to it, and that was probably about a year ago. Maybe a year and a half ago. No, about a year ago. And I just listened to it again recently, and I loved it. And then I was going through my local CD shop, and I picked up Blackwater Park. Popped it in, fell in love with the fucking album. And here's exactly what I said about it. For me, Blackwater Park has some of the best production and layouts of any of their albums. This album has some of their strongest tracks and an insane way of letting you in for the entire album. I will forever believe that this album contains some of the best riffs ever in metal history. The title track has to be one of my favorite songs ever written by anyone. The balance between acoustic and heavy is really good in this album. Taking a step back and looking at the band's growth, I think this is where they truly defined their peak sound, in my opinion. Granted, I like all of Opeth's early albums to an extent, but this one takes the cake, with Morningrise very close behind. And I gave this one... It is very rare for me to get into the 90s when I'm rating an album out of 100. I gave this album an overall rating of 91 out of 100 to come in first place. I think that this is definitely one of the most, like, founding prog metal albums ever fucking created. Like, the top 5 for me are some of the best albums I've ever listened to for metal. Like, Ghost Reveries, Orchid, Still Life, Morningrise, and Blackwater Park. Absolutely incredible albums. And, you know, that along with Deliverance and My Arms, Your Hearse, probably the 7 albums that I could listen to over and over again by Opeth and never get sick of it. So that's my honest ranking of Opeth. So I know this was kind of a conjumbled video, much like Orchid. But I hope you guys did enjoy. I hope some of you agree with me. I'd like to see the people who don't. I want to see your list. I just want to know, like, what values you take out of each album, because that's important to everybody in a different kind of way. For me, I just think their sound was defined better in their early years. But, yeah, no, I want to see your guys' opinions. Let me know what you guys are thinking, and I will talk to you guys very, very soon. So, please enjoy your day. Go enjoy some metal, and I'll talk to you soon. Guys, I think the next video on this channel is probably going to be a full discography ranking of Children of Bodom. Let's do Children of Bodom. That could be a really good video. We can talk about their 10 studio albums, so that'll be good. All right, well, you guys have a good day, or a night, evening, morning rise, wherever the fuck you are, and whatever the fuck time it is. So, rock on. I'm going to go upload this video and get some fucking sleep, because tomorrow's Friday, and I have shit to do with my friend. So, yay. All right. Until we meet again, you will see me again probably next week for Children of Bodom. Peace out.